any action that actually brings things into the world involves a confrontation with your limitations. You don't want to feel what it feels like to be limited and imperfect. The imperfection is guaranteed. Like, you definitely aren't going to get to bring it into the world in exactly in tune with your fantasy. And everyone is in the same boat. So you might as well do it.
Why do people procrastinate?
Well, they watch those videos presumably while they should be getting on with the working question, right? That's probably
like and subscribe.
Procrastination videos are really popular. One level, there's lots of different reasons: fear of failure, fear of success, fear of all sorts of different things. But at the deep level, I make the argument anyway: you don't want to feel what it feels like to be limited and imperfect. And so, if you hold on to a project, if you keep it in your mind in the world of fantasy, it can stay perfect. It can be later that you're going to do this great thing. Any action that actually brings things into the world involves a confrontation with your limitations. Maybe you're not going to have the talent for it. Maybe it's not going to be well received. Maybe it's going to be too complicated. If I'm trying to write a chapter of a book, like, the stakes are high for me because I want it to go well, but I don't know that it is going to go well. I want it to be well received, but I don't know that it will be well received. It's so much nicer to just spend that time doing something kind of pointless and, scrolling around or whatever, because I don't have to confront my limitations. And what I want to try to convey in that topic in this book anyway, I think, is to say, look, bringing anything into the world, studying for any qualification, doing any kind of creative work, like launching any kind of business, like the imperfection is guaranteed. Like, you definitely aren't going to get to bring it into the world in exactly in tune with your fantasy. And everyone is in the same boat. And this is completely unavoidable and baked in. So you might as well do it, right? Because it's like, I think people, they get caught up in themselves. They think, well, I'm going to make a fool of myself, or I'm going to let myself down, or I'm going to let my friends or my parents down. But it's like, no, the imperfection, the fact that it will stumble and not be everything you dreamed it could have been, that ship has sailed. Like, that's just for everyone. So now can we just move forward and do our imperfect things, and lots of them will turn out to be, fantastic things, but they will all be imperfect because that's what it is to bring things into the world as a human being.
Knowing that, and having written a chapter in your book called Becoming a Better Procrastinator, do you still procrastinate?
Yes. I always feel like my point about that, I get asked this question and I'm always like, look, you got to compare me with who I was before, not with this perfect person, because I am not that perfect person, but I am a lot better at it than I was. And where I stumble on that is not so much anymore with the idea that it's got to be like perfect standard, because if you spend a few years as a journalist, you get that sort of beaten out of you, right? Because like deadlines come, you just got to send the thing in, and you stop thinking after a while that your glorious prose has got to be perfect. You can't let it out of your sight until it's perfect, because it's just never how it works. Where I still run into trouble is that I do feel this urge to feel in control of all the things that are going on in my life and all the things going on in my work. So it's very tempting for me to say, I've got to write that really important thing, or I've got to think through this really important thing, but first I'm going to make sure that all my inboxes are under control, and then I'm going better do all that admin about finances that I'd left, and I better sort of, and then before you know it, it's like better like rearrange my desk so that all the pens are straightened up, whatever. Displacement activities, things that make me feel more in control of my world, but actually don't move the things that I care about forward the most. And I'm getting better on that too, but that's the thing. That's where the struggle is for me. I will definitely spend like long periods of time getting my ducks in a row and clearing the decks. And I write in the book about how you've really got to try and fight this urge to clear the decks, because they will never be clear, right? So you got to just get on with things. But yeah. Work in progress for sure.
That's a very honest answer, and I'm glad to hear that. You talk a lot about focus as well in this idea of avoiding your middling priorities, which I thought was really good advice. So could you talk a little bit about the importance of avoiding middling priorities?
Certainly. The story that dramatizes this is this idea that some people may have heard about. It's attributed to Warren Buffett, but I think probably it didn't come from Warren Buffett. People often just take wise sayings and say that Warren Buffett
I
said
wish they'd do that with me. Christ.
It's Warren Buffett, Buddha, and Confucius, basically. So hopefully you as well. Right? Yes, right. But Buffett is supposed to have been asked, like, how do you decide what to prioritize in life? And to have replied that you should make a list of your top 25 goals in life and order them numerically from 1 to 25. And then take the top 5 on that list and really focus on them in your life, and take the next 20 and avoid them like the plague, because they are the ones that you care about enough to let them distract you from the top 5, but not the ones that are easy to let go of because you don't really care about them, right? They belong in this middle zone. Whether or not that exercise is a useful exercise, the principle here, I think, is that you have to sort of be especially wary of claims on your attention and your time that do matter a bit, but just not as much as the things that you care about the most. It's very easy to, people talk all the time about the importance of learning to say no, right? But people often, I think there's a subtext there. They think what that means is if you just learn to say no to all the stuff you don't want to do, you can spend your time doing the stuff you do want to do. But I quote actually Elizabeth Gilbert, the writer in the book, saying like, no, it's way harder than that. You have to say no to things that you do want to do, because there are more things that matter than you have time for. So middling priorities are, that friendship that, yeah, it's fine. It's nice when you meet up with that person, but it's not, neither of you are getting that much out of it. And it's taking another hour away from, I don't know, your partner, your child, your best friend, definitely sort of work projects that sort of, yeah, you can do them. You could handle that. It might make you a little bit of money or, whatever, but it's not the number one thing. It takes quite a lot to resist those because they're not unimportant. They're just not important enough.
And it feels like more is more, but as the phrase goes in this context, less is more. I've observed that in my life anyway. If you want to be successful in business, then focusing on one as opposed to having 3 startups is much better. But some people will brag about how many businesses they run or how many things they do, as if they believe that makes them more valuable. Mm-hmm. They'll brag about how many friends they have as opposed to the quality of them. And it tends to be the case that phrase "less is more" is true in the sense of focusing on less things gives you much more meaning and depth in life, and that's ultimately what matters.
Yeah, and actually, I think it's probably the way to accomplish more things as well, right?
100%.
It's so one thing that I've found, I can't talk on the level of businesses launched, but only on the level of articles and books written, is the degree to which I can do things sequentially and train myself to do one big thing at a time and wait till it's finished before you move on to the next one. Takes kind of guts to do it because it feels better to have a finger in every pie at once, but to the extent that I can do that, to that extent, I get more of those things done. Yeah. Because you make most of them wait. You focus on one, you do it, and then it's finished, and then you bring the next one in and you do that. It's so tempting to sort of dissipate your energies because I think it makes you feel, we're back to the same idea, right? It makes you feel limitless. It makes you feel like you can wrap your arms around the whole world.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.